Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from the third group. We are here. We will present about linguistic varieties and multilingual nation. Our members of group are Rifqi Iman Salafi and Ahmad Ulil Albab. Before we begin the presentation, I have a question for you. How bilingual are we? According to the book, 50% and more of world inhabitants are bilingual, and 13% of people are trilingual, and 3% of the peoples are multilingual. Why people become multilingual or bilingual? Because in the fact that one purpose need one language. An illustration I will give that explain why people become multilingual. Mr. Patel is a spice merchant who lives in Bombay. When he gets up, he talks to his wife and children in Kathiawari, their dialect of Gujarati. Every morning, he goes to the local market where he uses Marathi to buy his vegetables. At railway station, he buys his ticket into Bombay city using Hindustani, the working person's lingua franca. He reads his Gujarati newspaper on the train, and when he gets to the work, he uses Kachi, the language of the spice trade, every day. He knows enough English to enjoy an English cricket commentary on the radio, but he would find an English film difficult to follow. However, since the spice business is flourishing, his children go to an English medium school, so he expects them to be more proficient in English than he is. Languages spoken by people who live in multicultural country are classified by sociolinguists as four. The first is vernacular language, the second is standard language, and the third is lingua franca, and the last is pidgin and creoles. Vernacular language is a language which has not been standardized and which doesn't have official status. For example, is Buang language in Papua New Guinea, and then Hindustani in India. For people, vernacular language is first learned language, especially who come from multilingual community. Three components of the meaning of the vernacular language are: the first is uncodified or unstandardized variety, and the second is first spoken language in the home, and the third is language used for relatively circumscribed functions. UNESCO have their own meaning about vernacular language. According to them, vernacular language is the first language of a group socially or politically dominated by a group with the different language. For example, the Greek is vernacular language in Australia, but it is not vernacular language when the Greek is in Greece, and second is Spanish in USA. But Spanish is not longer as vernacular language when it is in Spain. The other definition of vernacular language is most colloquial variety in person linguistic repertoire. In multilingual communities, it is spoken with family, close friends, especially who come from same ethnic. For example, when you are an Indonesian and then go to the US and you are there meet with your friend that is Indonesian, you will speak bahasa Indonesia there. It means bahasa Indonesia is vernacular language in USA when you speak it with your friend. And vernacular language is also described as language used for everyday interaction without implying that this is appropriate only in informal domains. The second is standard language. The definition of standard language is a variety of language that is written and codified, considered as prestigious variety used for communication in court, literature, and administration, and spoken by multilingual or multidialectical community. Now we speak about the Standard English. Standard English origin is a variety of English used in 14th century by English court and influential traders in London. London itself is center of England. Here is center of political, social, and intellectual life of England. English codification process was helped by introduction of printing in late of 15th century. As prestigious variety, Standard English spreads across England, which is inhabited by various dialects, even distant colonized territories, which are home for foreign languages. Standard English plays role as media where people with different dialect and language from England's territories communicate each other. The phenomenon caused coining of term which is World Englishes. World Englishes describe as the range of different varieties of English that have developed since the 19th century. In contexts where multilingualism is the norm, relatively standard varieties such as formal Singapore English, expressing global concepts shared across nations, coexist alongside more nativized varieties of English influenced by local languages. The example that illustrate these varieties are Cincailah with meaning up to you. It comes from Singapore English. And the next example is from Indian English. You are student kya? Or you are student right? For explaining World Englishes, Kachru make expanding circle of English. The circle consists 3 parts. The first part is inner circle. The inner circle's members are England, New Zealand, and US. The countries that are members of this circle are monolingual country. And the second circle or part is author. The authors member, for example, India, Singapore, and Malaysia. The members of this part usually using English as their second language. And the third is the expanding area. The members of these parts are China, Japan, Korea, and others. The third classification of language according to the sociolinguist is lingua franca. It refers to language used in communication between people whose first languages differ. For example, when scientists from Africa, Europe, Asia, America, and other countries hold a meeting, they use English in communication. They have different mother tongues, but everyone understands English. In multilingual countries, the most used lingua franca is national language. Or, in other words, the most used lingua franca is national language. For example, in Tanzania, Swahili is used to be spoken by people who meet someone from other tribe. This language is used by most of people there. In multilingual communities, lingua franca will take position of vernacular language. For example, in Papua New Guinea, the country that has many tribes, when someone marries other from different tribe, he will speak language where his home located. His child would not know much about his father's vernacular language, and the child would speak the language that he is born or she is born. The next slide was presented by Ahmad Ulil Albab.
Pidgin. A pidgin is a language which has no native speakers. Pidgin develops as a means of communication between people who do not have a common language. So, a pidgin is no one's native language. Pidgins seem particularly likely to arise when two groups with different languages are communicating in a situation where there is also a third dominant language. And because, in multilingual contexts, pidgins develop as languages of trade between the traders. The structure of a pidgin is generally no more complicated than it needs to be to express these functions. Nobody uses a pidgin as a means of group identification or to express social distance, and so there is no pressure to maintain referentially redundant features of a language or complicated pronunciations whose main purpose is to signal how well educated you are. Pidgin languages are created from the combined effort of people who speak different languages. Thus, the prestige language tends to supply more of the vocabulary. This is called superstrate, and for the while vernacular languages have more influence on the grammar of developing pidgin, it's called substrate. A pidgin language has three identifying characteristics. The first, it is used in restricted domains and function. The second is it has a simplified structure compared to the short languages, and the third, it generally has low prestige and attracts negative attitudes, especially from the outsiders. A Creole is a pidgin which has acquired native speakers. A creole is a pidgin which has expanded in structure and vocabulary to express the range of meanings and serve the range of function required of a first language. Pidgins become more structurally regular as they undergo creolization, the process by which a pidgin becomes a creole. The list in table below illustrates a linguistic strategy which regularizes the structure of words with related meanings, and so makes the form easier to learn and easier to understand. The example, in talk cuisine, big become bikim for the verb, bright become brightim, down become downim, and no good become no goodtim. The function of Creole, for instance, in talk cuisine is frequently used as a language of debate in the Papua New Guinea Parliament, and it is used for the first 3 years of education in many schools. Okay, that's all from us. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.